much like kale, we typically see like just a few varieties, but there are multiple. But in our food supply, really and truly, I mean, I just think parsley in its form, I mean, it's so lutein rich. I mean,
Mm.
the green, underneath the green, of course, is the yellow that contains the lutein. And so it's just amazing that it rivals that of kale. Although I don't know if people can really consume that amount of parsley because,
Oh, I can.
can you?
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
so
I
it's
like a little
definitely,
bit of whatever with either my parsley or my cilantro.
oh, wow. Wow. And I was curious too. I don't know if people get that same soapy taste that they get with cilantro with parsley.
I don't
I
think
haven't heard from people, but it seems like overall it'd be pretty palatable. So,
well, traditionally tabbouleh really was the major constituent was parsley, with just a
yeah.
tiny bit of bulgur. And now I'll either use cauliflower or quinoa, but it's almost all parsley.
Oh, wow. What
Which
a
and
great, yeah, that's a great vehicle for parsley, actually.
Mhm.
And isn't it amazing? Just one final comment here before we get going. How cauliflower has taken the main stage in all different foods.
Mhm.
Cauliflower flour, cauliflower pizza. What did I just see at the store? It was the weirdest cauliflower crackers now. I mean, probably they've been out there, but now I'm seeing cauliflower crackers. It's like, I don't know. I'd have to look into that a little bit more as to what they're doing to the
This
cauliflower.
about cauliflower for breakfast. It's Elizabeth cereals. They have a cauliflower one.
And how does it taste?
I haven't tasted it. It's a cauliflower and strawberry, and
Okay.
so I ate all around it yet. I ate all the other ones. I did grab it. I did resonate for it, but I haven't eaten it yet.
It's interesting. It's kind of nice that people are becoming more flexible about their food choices where they're willing to try cauliflower for breakfast in a different food form. I mean, that's really saying something about people's palates. I think it's kind of interesting, but I just wonder what they're doing to the cauliflower to make it fit into all of these food formats, because that's just, if it's a living food, I'm sure that there's some other starch or maltodextrin or something as a carrier or a stabilizer for cauliflower. It just doesn't seem like that could withstand shelf life. So, but yeah, we can look into it for sure. Okay, we've got Gloria. All right, everybody. So got a couple of things that I'd like us to do, some activities. So just to place us where we're at in our trajectory here of the month of fire, and for those of us who are in the Northern Hemisphere, we're experiencing summer, and for those of you who are in the Southern Hemisphere, you're experiencing winter, right? So just the opposite. But we just have a couple of you that are in the Southern Hemisphere. But for many of you, you're actually experiencing a temperature change. Barbie, you showed a picture of yourself outside in the Texas heat, withstanding that. So that was pretty phenomenal. I mean, no better way to really experience a chakra than to be bathed in it from its elemental perspective, right? So when we were flowing on the flow, being in water, now in fire, and really being connected to the element of heat and fire in its true sense. So to look at how you connect to that element, right? And so even in Ayurvedic medicine, how they talk about the different doshas, the constitutional types, some of us are just a little bit more inclined towards becoming warmer, quicker, faster, and that might actually say something about whether or not our fire is overactive. If we have a little bit more of a kapha constitution, which is part of the Ayurvedic dosha or constitutional types, we might need a little bit more fire to get us burning brightly and get us moving within that element. So I think it's really beautiful to explore how the elements are playing through each of these chakras. And so we've had the beauty of fire, and we're going to play on that theme a little bit more as we continue on. So this week, our focus is food and lifestyle, which is very congruent for many of you who are in the profession of either counseling others on food and lifestyle, or you're very active in it yourself because of your own healing process. So we're going to have some more of that coming through. Okay, we've got Markel who has just joined us. Okay, good. All right, so first activity. Let me just make one quick announcement before we get to that activity. That is, you might remember this, but if not, I'm going to bring it back just so everybody recalls it. We had each of the months have a little bit of slack in them. So some months aren't all 4 weeks. So it's not a nice, neat, tidy time frame for all of the chakras, right? When I was first visioning this course, I was thinking, oh yeah, every month is a chakra and we're just going through that. Well, August has a little bit of some slack in it, which was perfect because I was thinking that one of the things that comes up for people with any of this kind of work, food and spirit, whole detox, whatever it is that people need some time to integrate, to pull away and come back in after some introspection and reflection. And what I thought was ideal was to take the warming chakras, root, flow, and fire, and to have that week of August 26th where we blend them together. We do our own, there won't be a lecture, there won't be reading assignments, but there will be some Facebook posts for you to get you going in this direction of pulling together these three. These are truly the most heated and the most, I would say, the most active of the chakras. And these are the ones where people feel less inclined. They carry a lot of energy, not just for us, but sometimes for the lineage that we're connected to. And so they tend to be a bit more heavy. You know, there's just more going on, which is why at the end of this, I'm doing a free month with all of you in January, and we're going to revisit the root to make a circle. So instead of seeing the chakras as a line, as a circuit, we're going to see it as a circle because they're all very, very much interconnected. So I wanted to let you know that we will have this break during that time of the 26th. We will still have our webinar on its normal track, wherever that falls, but we will have a break that week. Okay, any questions about that? Give some people some time to kind of sink into it and do some journaling or even to connect with your partners. One of the things, I was going through the different posts on Facebook and reflecting as to where some of your energies were and some of your thoughtful comments were concentrated. And I found that this post on the process of digestion seemed to ripple through a number of you, and some of you gave some very thorough, deep, introspective responses on these. And so what I was asking here in the post was, if these are the stages of digestion of food, how do these stages of digestion correlate to your life? And some of you were saying, oh, for me, I find ingestion challenging, or I find absorption and assimilation challenging. Tracy, I think you said excretion, you're a happy camper. So what I was wanting us to do before we move into food and getting into food a little bit more, I want us to first anchor back into digestion, and for all of us to do a check-in on how we did this past week with digestion, rumination, focusing on our mental thoughts as well as our digestive properties. And so why don't we just all go around and have all of you make some comments about how you did on digestion. Just simply anything that, we have Alicia joining us. Let me just get her in here. So anything that comes to mind in the way of anything that you want to comment on, I just thought I would have this slide as a prompt so that you can remember some of the different phases. So let's get Alicia there. Okay. All right. So we've got 12 of you on. So let's see. Let me see if I can just extend this out. And you can use the slide, of course, to kind of see what we're looking at here. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of go in the row here. Tracy, I think everybody is seeing my screen. So Tracy, you're just right below me. So why don't you know what, I'm going to stop the share because then we can all see each other. I think this is kind of unwieldy. There we go. So why don't you comment on how did you do with the digestive tract? You know, we moved through each of the organs. Did anything come up for you? You know, comment. Yeah. Tell me more.
I actually have been doing castor oil packs more, and I feel like they have been. Oh God, I can't. Marisol. I listened to first. I heard her on one of our webinars, and then I heard her through something else, and have been doing a castor oil pack pretty much every night for the last 3 weeks. And I noticed.
Can you explain how you do it, Tracy? Because I'm sure some people in the group have not tried castor oil packs. Tell us how you do them.
Well, I mean, there's several ways. I bit the bullet and bought her pack, but I don't think you need to do it at all. And of course, it's me, so I'm going to change everything, right? So what I did was I was using it instead of pouring it straight onto the pack itself. I actually put it in my hand with like a tablespoon in my hand with 1 drop of, I could think it was rose geranium essential oil, because that's good for liver and gallbladder. And then I massage it going with the colon and really work on the liver, massage around the liver. Then I use her castor oil pack. And a lot of people will tell you to put the castor oil right on the pack. I, for some reason, felt I needed the massage. So I went with it. And she feels that compression is a really big part of it. And I honestly haven't read the research on why. I just went with it. And I think, in the future, I would just probably get the wool flannel, still massage it, put it on. And you could easily just use a lightly wrapped ACE bandage to get the same type of compression. Sort of thing. But I felt like I was sleeping better. I definitely can tell a difference in my bowel movements. Not that they were bad. They were actually just fine. But I love castor oil. It's a driver. It just pushes things in. It makes things work better. And I don't know, I just felt a little more vital than I had been. I think it's been very helpful to me. Okay. Not that I was having a hard time, but now it feels better. So I highly recommend them.
Yeah, and I really like it from a chakra perspective of using the flow to help the fire move. That soothing oil warms up nicely. When I do a castor oil pack, I use a heated water bottle. Then I put it on top just to, rather than more mechanical motion, I allow the heat itself to move some of that oil in and create movement and circulation. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It just...
Yeah, Marisol had said she felt like it's the heat, because I have always done heat, just like you.
Yeah.
But she felt like it was too fast of a absorption for the castor oil. And I'm sorry, I can't quote her exactly, but she goes, I feel like its heating is up too rapidly. That's what we're trying to do, is get some movement going. But I'll have to go back and read or look where she said she didn't enjoy the heat. I personally like the heat. Just
I think it depends whether you like, because you can gauge that just like you can with movement, which can be faster or slower. But that's great. I like that as a practical modality to bring something in like that.
Yeah, and it felt good. The massage felt good to me. That touching herself, it was good.
To that point, for all of us, another form of body work, which some of you may have experienced, which involves the belly area, is Mayan abdominal massage, which some of you may have had. Mayan is M-A-Y-A-N. It's so good. And how many massage therapists massage the belly? They won't do it unless you're asking them to do it. And they will do it many times if you do ask them. And of course, certain motion to do it in. Clockwise.
Sorry to jump in, but Rosita Arvigo.
Yes.
And I've known Rosita for about 25 years. Not on a deep personal level, but just through herbs and her being part of the conference we did. And she has an older book where she does describe the self-care for the Mayan abdominal massage. So I don't know if it's in Rainforest Remedies or not, but if you look up some of her older books, you'll find it inside there, and you can do the whole thing yourself. So I do a lot of self-care that way.
Yeah.
I'm leaving again.
Well, no, thank you, Tracy. That's really great to know about her books. And she does, it's different when you do it yourself versus getting it done, though, by somebody, right? I mean, there is, if anybody has ever tried it, I have multiple times. And every time I've had it done, there's been an emotional release. It's like, it's amazing how much we store in our bellies. And of course, we could do that ourselves and move things around. If I'm teaching yoga, oftentimes I'll take 2 tennis balls and have duct tape on them. And then I'll use a tennis ball to create some motion in the gut area, or even on the spine in the back, and kind of roll that area to stimulate the gut area. So not always having to go from the front part of the body, but also the back part. And you have to be really careful, like if you have ulcers or hernias or any kind of contraindications in that space. But all I can say is, with Tracy bringing up the castor oil, it really makes me think of the belly massage with the Mayan work with Rosita Arvigo. She's trained a number of people. So you can probably find one in your area if you'd like to have somebody who's trained in that art. I mean, they actually, like, the therapist would take her fingers and curl them under and like take my organs and be moving them just to get a sense. It's not just like squishy little nice surface massage. We're talking deep tissue, getting in if you have adhesions or blocks or constriction in the gut. So just be forewarned that it's not a light massage. You've got to be paying attention. You can't zone out in that massage. All right. Bridget, I see you up on the screen next. Would you like to check in on how you've been over this past week with digestion?
Yes, I am still struggling with SIBO, and malabsorption is a big issue for me.
Yep.
So this last week, on reflecting on a lot of the posts, I am a very fast eater, so much less having the malabsorption problems because of candida and bacterias. I just eat too fast. So I've made a very conscious effort, that mental effort, to slow down, but then I'm kind of been doing a conscious try to get up to 20 chews, and I think it's helping, but it's hard to change.
It's hard. Have you tried more purees or broths or soups or stews, which so it doesn't require so much chewing, just to see if you're actually drilling into something?
I have, and it does much better, and I need to just make the time to make them, these soups. I'm not a soup maker, and but I did do soup this week, and I did find it better, and I felt better too, I think, from the digestion process, not having the whole foods. I'm trying to stay with cooked, and but that was kind of what I was trying to work on this week.
Excellent. Thanks, Bridget.
You're welcome.
And, there are so many prepared soups too that are more conscious and more healthy. Sometimes I'll just buy like bone broth and then just start adding veggies to it, or whatever you eat, just kind of use that as a base. It's just good.
And coconut, I like to add a little coconut milk when I make it. I can
That's a nice idea to make it a little bit more creamy.
Mm-hmm.
Super. Thank you. Shelley, how about you? How has it been for you this past week?
It's been good. My digestion is usually pretty good. I've been focusing a lot lately, a lot on like what I've been reading. I'm working on another course that I'm getting into the deadline to finish. So I've been doing a lot of mental digestion. But physically, usually my digestion is good. But I can tell, like I was just traveling last week and was with a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time. And my diet was off, and it wasn't great. And it was, not as colorful as I like it to be. And I could tell a real difference mentally, physically. So just being home for a couple of days and getting back to my normal, pretty healthy diet, I can tell a huge, like I said, mental and physical difference. My mood, I feel better. But I've been doing a lot of mental digestion too. I always do a lot of mental digestion. I always read a lot and things like that. So, but it's good, no complaints. I'm going with it. I'm here in Texas too. It has been so hot. I think we've still got another couple of weeks of 100-degree temperatures or something like that.
Oh my word.
But yeah, it's interesting. And I just wanted to mention one other thing too. I saw you made a post about Vedic astrology in another group, and I do Vedic astrology, and you can see a lot by looking at charts. And then in mine, for instance, I've got so much, a lot of pitta. It's also about, which is fire, as you know. But it's also, I've got the kapha too, so it's a balance. But it's interesting. I love it that you said that, and bringing in the Ayurvedic way of looking at it as well. So it's interesting. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. And being that you're steeped in that area, is there a good questionnaire like Deepak Chopra's Perfect Health book? That was one of my first entrees into Ayurvedic medicine and doshas, but can you recommend something for our group online so that everybody can get to know their doshas if they don't know?
Yeah, let me check with a friend of mine. Ayurveda is not my specialty. I just know a little bit about it, but let me ask someone and I'll put it up there in the group.
Okay, super. And also I was wondering, can you describe, because I think for many of us, we struggle with our guts. What does somebody who has a strong gut constitution and function, how do you know, like what does that look like? I think it'd be good for us to know what is optimal in terms of gut health. How do we gauge that? How do we know when we've arrived at good gut health?
I can tell it in it's just how I feel. I never, or rarely do I not feel good after I eat. Like it's something that's like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. It's like I can eat anything. And so but the main way I can tell is just eating the good things, eating the things that you need, or focusing on, at the moment I'm taking a lot of mushroom supplements, and it's as soon as my gut is not right, I can tell, and it's hard for me to explain. But I think the main way I can tell is I have the good digestion, is I can eat anything.
Yeah,
and it's never a problem.
That's a really good way to contextualize it, because how often is it that we get into our late 30s and 40s or wherever we are in our life, and it's like, oh my gosh, I used to be able to eat eggs all the time or whatever it was, and it's like, I can't eat that anymore. What's going on? It's like, yes, bingo, now's the time to check into digestion. Okay. Good for us to have a benchmark. Thank you, Shelley. Gloria, how about for you? What's been going on with digestion for you?
Hi, Diana. How are you?
Good.
Well, I think I'm supposed to be super strong in my stomach, but since I started the course 3 weeks ago, I feel very leaky and bloating and everything. So I don't know what happened with my body. And also I was in the doctor, the gynecologist, and he told me I have some myoma. So I'm very scared about all these things now. So I don't know if it's too big, I don't know if it's small, but I think I need to be more in this kind of situation. Okay. So if any have any suggestions, please let me know. I am open to all they have. The only I have now is the geranium and some castor oil. So I put every day in my body for feel more calm and because it's like a colic all the time. Like I feel like a pain all the time. Cramp.
Wow.
Yes.
And so
I'm here. I'm happy because I'm with you guys. I'm so happy here. Yes.
And how interesting that you were doing just fine. And then all of a sudden when we got into the fire, it's like a lot of this stuff started to come up. And we might find that as we move through that our bodies, our things in our environment might start changing.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if you don't have a functional medicine practitioner, that's usually the best place to start, is to get working on a gut healing protocol.
Okay.
Going through those sequence of steps that relate to gut healing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the gut healing is also with the myomas and everything. Is the same?
It's all
it's
the same space. It's all the same space. And so even gynecological or even growths or all kinds of things in that gut space are all going to be interrelated.
Okay.
Due to the, potential inflammation in the gut area.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And also I have somebody make a massage that the same you, but it's too painful for me. I don't know if Mayan, but she's very good into, so it was
too much, huh?
Yeah, super painful. And I also, I was in the acupuncture doctor, so to make a best for my body.
That's another great modality. I feel like we're being very practical about the fire, which is so good. We need tools, and acupuncture is so good for getting those meridians into alignment.
Exactly.
So the fire, the fire element within traditional Chinese medicine and working on those different meridians, which sometimes tie into the heart. So, okay. Well, Gloria, I hope that you feel better.
Then if you have somebody in Miami or in Mexico for function medicine, please let me know.
Okay.
I have
okay. And if anybody ever wants to find a functional medicine doctor, what you can do is go to functionalmedicine.org. You type in your zip code. They have a section on the website where it says find a practitioner. So you can find a doctor right there on the site. You'll get a whole list of different people, and you can find who has the credentials that you want or who lives close to you. All right, Robin, I think you're next.
In general, I don't really have a lot of issues with digestion. I do know, like Bridget mentioned, I do know that I need to eat much slower than I do. I think that's probably the main thing that I would say needs to be addressed in terms of my digestion. I do sometimes wonder in terms of like absorption and assimilation of the vitamins and minerals that I'm eating in my food, how much of that really does get absorbed. I did just recently, within the past couple of weeks, go see a functional medicine doctor in my area. And so we had some other things that we were starting off with, but I'm sure at some point we'll get to dealing with those things. But I used the website to find her, and I've looked at that website several times over the last probably 4 or 5 years. And just recently there have been, I live in Atlanta, but so if you know Atlanta's huge, and the ones that have been on the website up until recently have not been anywhere near my area. And now there are 2. This one that I went to see a couple of weeks ago is like 3 miles from me. And I get an appointment to see her relatively quickly. So I was really excited about that. So I highly recommend that Find a Functional Medicine Provider website.
Yeah, it's such, and also you were wondering, some of you were expressed on the page that you weren't sure if you were assimilating and actually digesting. So there are stool tests that can be done through a functional medicine provider to actually look at what's in your poop. And so they'll look at protein breakdown products, they'll look at fats, they'll look at carbohydrate type enzymes like pancreatic elastase. So you can infer based on what you find in your stool, you can track that back and say, oh, something. As far as vitamins and minerals, there typically has to be another test that is done where you look at the levels of those in the blood. So that's a little bit more of a big black box of unknown. You can't really tell unless you do more sophisticated testing. But typically the stool test can give you a lot of information just in general. It's not a fun test to do, but it tells you a lot about digestion.
Yeah, Deanna, I've done it. I did it on my 3rd time over a 2-year period. And I was so blessed that this last time was the first time that my inflammatory markers are finally within a normal range.
Oh, wow.
However, we identified 2 really bad bacterias in these 5 years that I just have not been able to kill with botanicals.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to bite the bullet and go on an antibiotic, but had a very adverse reaction to the antibiotic. I've just gotten off of it, and I kind of now regret it. But at least it gives you guidance, you know, because you really kind of shooting in the dark, I think, when you have issues. I don't absorb any fats. So that GI test, I'm still not, you know, they go right through me. But yeah, it's a great test, and it's very detailed. So I do recommend it.
Yeah, good point, Bridget. It's through, you know, there are a different variety of labs, like Genova Diagnostics does one called CDSA 2.0, where you can get this information. But it will test your microbiome in terms of its diversity. You'll get lots of different things, not just the digestion component. You'll get some other things that, just like Bridget was saying, otherwise it feels like shooting in the dark. It's really hard to say without doing the test to find out what bacteria. And then you'll also see which types of botanicals are important for killing off certain bacteria. So, all right. Thanks, Robin. What I'm getting from this too is chewing, how important it is to chew. And, you know, that is where digestion starts, and we're not even at the truth. We're down below, but the chewing is so important, and spending time chewing. Tammy, how are things for you?
Well, I think things are going pretty well for me. I like the dialogue with the different parts of my body. So when you put up a post and say stomach, I have a chat with my stomach, and I've been writing some things down so I can be concise. But my stomach, I just let my mind fill with what comes in, and of course with my stomach, I did have a pain in the middle of my chest. From chugging a bit of cashew milk. But
Yeah.
what is for me by dialoguing is how important chewing is, being mindful when I eat, appreciating the food, and being relaxed when I eat. Now that's a hard combination. When I talk with my pancreas, it actually thanks me for digestive enzymes, a full spectrum digestive enzyme. While I was undergoing chemo treatment, I was using betaine HCl, and sometimes up to 5-6 tablets. Now I don't use it at all. I don't need it. But you know, my pancreas likes the enzymes, and I just kind of intuit. Use my intuition on whether to use it once a day, twice a day. If I go out to eat, I always have it when I sit down at a meal. My small intestine has told me it's feeling better, and I have noted that I have less food chunks in my stool. And that's kind of big for me. I can even eat corn, and I'm not seeing it. So my large intestine has been kind of, since chemo, created very loose stool and often explosive. And even in public, it was a terrible thing. I'm not having that anymore. But my large intestine said to me, I drink too much water, which makes me wonder if I'm having an absorption issue, except I'm using a homeopathic product that I think helps with that. And as long as I stick to about half my body weight, or a little less, things are going great. The one body part that doesn't want to talk to me is the liver.
Ooh.
Nothing comes up. I go blank, and I'm considering Tracy's liver packs. So thank you, Tracy, and anyone else. And we'll likely do that. Just haven't done it yet.
Interesting. Wow, Tammy, I really I made a comment on the Facebook page today about, you know, your perspective and your outlook, which is always, what is the deeper meaning? What is the lesson? And so thank you for sharing that with us. I really like that you did the organ dialogue. and that intuitively there's something to connect with on your liver. You know, one thing that you said, let's just think in chakra terms for a second. When you were talking about too much water, one of the things, and perhaps this is all very intuitive for all of you, but it's often contraindicated to have too much water and hardly any water with the meal, so as to not put out the digestive fire, right? Because the fire extinguishing the heat, everything that we need to like burn. And so, you know, typically like 30 minutes before a meal and 30 to 60 minutes after a meal, but not while we're eating. That's probably just a very basic tip, but I was just thinking about it, reflecting on based on what you were saying about too much water. Then we become soggy and damp and, you know, not able to, you know, create that quick burn. So
yeah,
really,
and I would, in the morning, I would drink up to, you know, I exercise in the morning, sometimes vigorously, often vigorously. And so I would drink 4 cups of water and then wonder why my next bowel movement was runny. It had no place to go except down the tube and through. So I drink a cup before I go, when I first get up, and then when I get into the exercise room, and then about a cup. I mean, I was rigid there for a while, but I'm finding as long as I loosely monitor it, I'm okay. And if stools are loose, it's probably the first thing I look at. How much water did I drink the day before? If I'm out in the yard and it's hot, yeah, I need another cup or so. So I'm kind of experimenting here. Your tip about not drinking with a meal is a good one.
yeah, see how that works for you. I mean, just a little bit, just, you know, when I go to a restaurant and they fill up with ice water, a big glass, and then they continue to fill your glass of water throughout the meal, it's kind of like, no, stop. No more ice water. Or if you do water with a meal, have it be tea, something warm, so that it's not contraindicated in the state of fire that your body's in, trying to digest. Okay, Barbie.
All right, here, my fire. Obviously, I was out in 100-degree weather, so it's doing okay. I did have to do some changes because I did have a stool test taken, and came back that I needed to add ox bile to my enzymes. I already was doing hydrochloric acid because, like Bridget, I had that malabsorption problem. And like Tammy, you know, also the water seems like it just like I can drink and drink it, and it's like I don't feel like I'm getting hydrated. So I have those, you know, I still have the malabsorption has really helped, and I've gained weight, and it's like I can go out since I've been on the ox bile and changed my whole enzyme thing. And so I have to say, I can say that it does work. And I knew back in probably 2012 when I had a diagnostic test with my functional medicine that I came back with, I wasn't digesting my fats back then. And so I obviously had a digestion issues. And that was all during hormonal changes. Mm-hmm. And when all this was kind of, when it hit me, when it hit my stomach. So anyhow, that's it. And with that, and chewing, I do chew my food very well. I actually was sitting with my husband and we eat dinner together. Sometimes he makes dinner, I make dinner. We share that tradition. And anyhow, I chew. And I was thinking about the foods I'm eating, and because we're supposed to journal. And so I said, I think I'll journal a little air bubble, and that'll be it, and I'll remember it. And it really is something when you actually take the internalness and think about how it tastes, what is it, the feeling it's bringing to you, it's really magical. I mean, but you really have to sit still and really like get your taste buds going. And I have to say that's another thing about being in tune of eating. I do not eat at my computer unless it's an emergency. I mean, I or vehicle kind of thing. Yeah, we try not to do that, except I did find myself, because I get up early in the morning to go see my horse to take care of him, taking banana and a liquid with me to take. But the thing is it's the only place where I would take food with me. And it's, but when you think about where you carry food, how you eat this food, it's amazing. I think it's really healthy to stay away from TV and any electronics and stuff like that. But anyhow, this is kind of just being cognizant of how you're eating your food and when you're eating it. That's. Yeah. But to help Bridget and anyone else with malabsorption, I really think you get with a functional medicine person and get that test done for your gut. Because it really can tell you what's going on. And hydrochloric acid for me and the ox bile really has made a difference.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. One thing that I'm picking out threads here and just writing them down. Two of you mentioned something, Tammy, you alluded to it, and now Barbie mentioning about not absorbing water. What I tend to do is just add a little bit of mineral salt, sea salt of some type, because water moves with the osmolarity. So you do that too, Tammy. Okay, good. And have you done that as well, Barbie?
No, I gotta try that one.
Not excessive amounts of salt, just enough so that, we talk about the osmolarity of water. And so it's something, if I were to think of it as a metaphor, it's almost like it's grabbing on and it's kind of moving in through, moving from a high concentration to a low concentration of salt. And that's how water moves. It moves from high to low concentration. And so just having a little bit of salt, I just put a little pinch. And, I love rituals at meals. One of the things that keeps me grounded, even if I'm eating alone, like on our dining room table, I have a deck of cards and I just pick a card and I sit it right in front of me and I eat and I reflect on that card. And it's kind of it's an easy mental digestion. It's not something heavy. It's more inspirational. All right. It looks like our order got shuffled a little bit. Rebecca, are you ready to check in with us? Okay, let's unmute.
Good. Some interesting insights that I've had. One, I was so interested in your commentary on the bile. And unfortunately, several years ago, I did have my gallbladder taken out. And so I was going to ask you what some of your recommendations are for having no gallbladder, because that would affect fat digestion. And another thing, an observation I made is while we were in the flow, I was on vacation for 10 days. And 7 days was at this beautiful lake. And I'm going, oh, this just works so well with the flow, all this water and everything. And then my son took me with his family on a 3-day camping trip in a tent, which I slept in. But it was along a creek called Granite Creek, a river like that. And at the head of the river in 1933, the Roosevelt, with his construction program, had a crew make a swimming pool right by a hot springs. And so the river fed into it, the hot springs fed into it, and it flows so rapidly that they don't have to chlorinate the water, which was fabulous. And then I get home, and when I wake up the next morning, as we're starting on the fire, my whole intestinal tract was on fire. Yeah. And I don't usually get inflamed. I don't usually have a lot of problems, but it was uncomfortable for several days. I think there was a little constipation and some stool coming around the constipation area. And I hadn't tried the castor oil, hadn't thought of that, but I was doing a little bit of aloe vera, some colon-specific probiotics, some DGL licorice, and all of that seemed to really help. And within about 4 days, I was really back to normal. But I just thought it was so interesting going from flow into fire. and I literally went from flow into fire.
Yeah. Interesting. It's interesting how this stuff in life shows up. And good awareness and attentiveness on your part to see that and to move with it. And I hope that being in the flow helped you with a bit of the inflammation and not to be stressed out, but to kind of work with your body as it sounds like you did. I'll just mention briefly so that we can move through a little bit more here. As far as fat digestion, if you don't have a gallbladder, just two things that I just think about primarily, and that is not huge amounts of fats at every meal, smaller amounts throughout the day, and also bitters, artichoke. There are a variety of supplements. So Barbie takes ox bile, so she's actually taking bile, but you can take a lot of the cofactors to make bile. And there are products that, again, different health practitioners and professionals can provide you with depending on what you need. But just because you don't have a gallbladder doesn't mean you don't have bile. It's just a matter of how it comes out into the intestine, and it can work quite well. So it's not always problematic. The biggest
you said artichoke
in order.
Okay, so you were saying tubers and artichoke and stuff. What else were you saying?
There's a product on the market. If you look at what they have in it, it is a variety of different things that stimulate bile. The product that I know is called Lipogen, Lipogen.
Is that through Metagenics?
Yeah, it's through Metagenics. So that product has a lot of co-fat, but there are similar products in the dietary supplement worlds that you can work with your practitioner on.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you for checking in. All right. Haida. Hi, welcome to our group. So you came in a little bit later with us, and I'm glad that you joined us for the Fire Month, and you live in Iceland.
Yes. Hi there, Bridget. I'm in this gorgeous course of yours because of Bridget. I got to know her. I was her tourist guide in Iceland.
Wonderful.
So it was so wonderful. So I'm just being in the flow. So I decided to start this course, although I had missed 2 of the first chakras, because I can see it, the videos. Okay, so I'm still very busy now with another group, and soon I will be able to start. But I'm having a little look at the Facebook group of yours and what you're chatting about, and I find these conversations of yours very interesting. I work as a nutritional counselist, also, a naturopathic nutritional therapist. So it's all very useful. I missed the first 15 minutes, though, of this here conversations. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say now. You're talking about how your digestion is, isn't you?
Yeah, we were checking in on last weekend where we were with our digestion, if there was anything that you wanted to comment.
Well, when I was listening to the others now, and I was trying to think, is there anything wrong with my digestion that I could share? Couldn't remember anything. Normally I'm good. I just have to be not indulging in gluten and all that, typical. But my digestion is very connected to my feeling, in what kind of state I am. So, as I'm a very sensitive person, so don't know if that's the right word, though. I'm not my first language, the English. But if I get very stressed or anxious, I got diarrhea. So it's like a clock. It's incredible. And I've been a tourist guide for 25 years. Hello, Bridget, again. And every time, the day before I meet a new group, I've got a diarrhea. Mm-hmm. Although I know everything perfectly now and all this, it's something. And so if there is something that's ahead of me, I got diarrhea. So I know I'm all into the Ayurveda also. And I've got, I heard you were thinking about, where you can get your Vata Pitta Kapha read. I can send you a link to a page which has it. I use a machine now. They can calculate it with electrodes on your wrists, and it's called Veta Pulse. I've got that, and I use it on my clients. And the Vikruti is determined, so you get help. It's called the Veta Pulse, and it's from Russia. And and this technique, they have used it on the Russian astronauts to monitor their health, and etc. So I know that when my Vata is full blown up, then there's a diarrhea, I think.
You know, thank you so much. What a great check-in, and it's so nice to have you in the group.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning the piece about sensitivity and emotions. And it's almost like, for those of us who might have a bit more in the way of gastrointestinal issues, we might be a little bit more emotionally sensitive. There might be a correlation between our emotions, how we respond, and then how our gut responds. And so there was an article, I think I'll post it for all of you, on a colleague of mine by the name of Benjamin Brown, who is a naturopath, wrote it, and it's called something along the lines of how IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, doesn't really exist. That we need to break it apart into all of the different features of the gut to not just lump it all together and say, oh, you're sensitive, you have emotional issues, you have IBS. It's like, no, we have a stage of different things that we can move through the gut to create more healing. So I will post that on our page in case any of you are interested. It's a very good article with some nice tables and such. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to read all the stuff. And what's happening.
Don't be too overwhelmed. You'll have a catch-up week too, the week of August 26th, where people can go back to videos if they didn't get a chance to watch them.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, good to know. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Alicia, why don't we have Alicia, Carolyn, and then Markel. Okay. Alicia, I think okay, read it.
Can you hear me? Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I have been out of the country for the last 10 days, and I just got back late last night. So this is a perfect topic because typically with traveling, it can really, play havoc on your digestive system. And I did get sick while I was there. Not with diarrhea or anything, but I contracted a UTI infection.
Oh.
And in fact, I'm going to go to the doctor after our call today. But just to backtrack a little bit, about 10 years ago, I was out of the country and I was hospitalized. I contracted a very bad case of salmonella that had a typhoid bacteria in it. And then I also had an amoeba. And I was hospitalized for 3 days and I almost died because all of my organs were shutting down. And it was very serious. And long story short, after the first 5 years of returning from being sick, I had some damage to my liver, my pancreas, I lost my gallbladder, and some kidney damage. And so they didn't really know if that was incidental or if it was because of my organs shutting down and being so sick. Because you don't typically get that sick from salmonella, which in retrospect, kind of talking about, you had mentioned the emotional connection. And I think when I got sick, I already had a compromised immune system where I was dealing with some things that I didn't know I was dealing with. And I think that was a very significant component to maybe perhaps why I got so sick. But as I've been going through my healing journey, I see a functional medicine doctor who's also an Ayurvedic practitioner. So I use a combination of the two, and that really works for me. But just when you think, you're on the right track and things are going well, it's interesting how I get sick again when I'm traveling. And I'm just wondering if I unconsciously have some sort of baggage that I'm hanging on to that, was affecting why I got sick.
Wow. Yeah, that's again, like very similar to Tammy, looking at the deeper meaning of why things happen to us.
Right.
One of the things I do before I travel anywhere is I have a pre-protocol, during, and then after. And I really beef up on things like probiotics, glutamine, really making sure that I'm bringing my pancreatic enzymes. I mean, what I'm hearing from some of you is, we may have bacterial infiltration in salts.
Right.
And so we can ask the deeper question, what are we letting in? So we could look at it more energetically, emotionally. We can also fortify our body in as much as we can through our immune function.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to look at both because we don't know which direction it's really coming in. So we just have to account for both of those areas. Yeah.
Right. But when you ask the other question about, what does good digestive, look like? And for me, if I'm pooping at least twice a day, I know that things are working well.
Yes, as long as it's a good poop, right? In terms of being,
Right. And the whole water thing, because that's something that I do pay very close attention to. And maybe just to add on to some of the tips that people were talking about, I don't have anything, I try not to have anything to drink 3 hours before I go to bed.
Wow.
Because if you're drinking up until the time you go to bed, even just drinking water, that is still stress on your liver. And, your body is processing that digestion when it needs to restore and repair. And so when you have a compromised immune liver like I do, I just find that really works for me because I tend to hang on to the fat and I do take that lipogen from Metagenics.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's really helpful.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. When we're sleeping, it's the time of the fire as well. It's fire insight. We'll get into the insight. That's the third eye chakra.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially when we're sleeping, not to be digesting, right? Because the mind now takes over versus the body. So it's good that you mentioned that about the water. Thank you. Thanks, Alicia. I hope that you feel better.
Yeah. Oh, I'll be fine. Yeah.
Okay. So in our remaining minutes, we're a little bit over here. Just want to have Carolyn and Markel, if you're open to checking in. I think I got everybody. Yeah. Ah, there she is. Okay.
Hi. How are you?
Hi.
It's been a great conversation so far. I've been getting a lot of tips. And when I answered your survey on Facebook, I said it's complicated about my digestion.
Yeah.
And going into the month with all the conversation on travel, it's very rare because I travel a lot, but I think I got some type of like food bug or ailment where my digestion started kind of off from where it normally is. And I'll bring up the emotional element for me the past week because I've been taking a flower essence. It's called Lilac, and it's with a group. It's in a group setting similar to this, a closed Facebook group, and it has issues of self-sabotage that comes up, and emotional eating is one of my self-sabotage areas, and I've had a lot of stress. So the fire element in general for me, I'm a Leo, and there's a lot of fire energy, so I've had a ton of energy, but I'm like burning myself out. And I feel it in my digestion a bit too, but I'm really from a digestion perspective thinking about kind of the decisions I make even as I start to eat food. And there's a lot around the self-sabotage that's almost like at a healing crisis for me that I'm dealing with.
Thank you, Carolyn. So much as it relates to emotional eating. And I covered that a little bit in the webinar this week, although we'll get more into that when we get into the truth, which is the throat. And then we start talking about what determines our choices. And by the time it's already in the fire. And so we'll get more into the choices, but the emotional eating, as we talked about with the flow as well, connecting flow to fire. And so that movement and how important that is, right? So it doesn't get stuck and stagnant.
Yeah, because in addition to the food, like I think it is the stuck and stagnancy that I'm really thinking about, because I also feel like I've also had some stuff come up I do somatic psychology, so I really pay attention to my body as well and kind of what I'm feeling. And I think at the very base, like kind of like the very base of my digestion, there's just a lot of stuck anger that I have to process. So I know, again, this is connecting like different systems together.
Yeah.
And I think the pure digestion, though, is something that I kind of have to honor myself and just eat the right food. And, you know, then it actually goes quite smoothly for me, although I've had like leaky gut issues and different things go on in the past, but, and probably still have things going on definitely with, you know, throughout. When you broke it down like that, it's a really interesting way to think about food, because I do think there's different parts of the process that are not always working optimally that you could kind of reflect on and address.
Mm-hmm. And then draw that parallel into your life as to, okay, where am I not ingesting? Where am I not assimilating, right? Yeah. How we eat is how we live, and how we live is how we eat is always my mantra. And so I always feel like, okay, if we can't fix the eating because our head is too much in it, let's look at what's going on in our lives and see if we can find something to work with there. And I like that you mentioned that you're a Leo. One thing I want to mention, I mentioned this briefly, from an astrological point of view, if you're into this kind of thing, you know, whatever your element type is constitutionally, I kind of see that as like, that is your gift. And so you being fiery is like, woo, let's wield and harness that fire in ways that are beneficial, right? Rather than letting it burn you up.
Yeah, and I have a ton of fire because I'm a big astrology buff, so I like know my chart well. And then I also have water, so the flow. But yeah, I'm feeling the fire energy though, because the sky, there's a lot of planets, so we all are feeling it, even if it's not summer where we are. There's just a lot going on with the elements, so it's a great time to be working on fire, because it's kind of like we have this support of getting a lot of extra planetary kind of charge from it to like really let us test the limits of it. And I really liked how you, you know, introduced this as looking at the positive elements, because fire is such a transformational thing. So, you know, again, for me, on the emotional level, the death and rebirth aspect. So, you know, but it starts with the base of the food from a physical sensation. And that's where I feel like I have to really just rebalance myself, because it's out of control right now. So, yeah, that's what I'm feeling.
No better time, right? So again, the image of Phoenix rising from the ashes, like using fire to transform ourselves. And through this course together, as we go through this experience, and even having that week of pause, really reflecting on your transformation from beginning June 1st until end of August, who are you now? Because you have transformed, and we're constantly transforming and burning up and rebuilding ourselves. And so thank you, Carolyn. Lots of great insights there. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Markel, we'll have you close. And then I have very quickly, when Markel is finished checking in, I have just for us to pick a quick card. I'm going to switch back to my screen, and then we'll close with that.
Okay. Sounds great. I have been working on my mental thoughts. And I'm finding, you know, that I definitely do often have a lot of spinning thoughts, which I have known that, but I thought I've been okay with it. But as I really focus on that, you know, so I've been I've been working with a mentor who's been doing some business guidance as well. And so she kind of has helped us with the Self-Coaching 101 by Brooke Castile. It's actually a really great book. And you go through and you know, state the circumstance, you know, what thoughts are you having, emotions, your actions and your results. And then you want to create a new pattern. And so I've been trying to create new patterns. And I find it yesterday, it was interesting yesterday, this is a pattern that comes up a lot. And although I keep working through it, just in the moment so the pattern is that I have discussions with people, and this is at church, to, you know, do an assignment, and then they need to go get it approved, and then they come back and let me know whether it's approved or not. And so she was asking me about dates, and I was like, I think that I was waiting for you to let me know if this had been approved or not. And, so we kind of had a little back and forth, and she's like, well, I sent it. And I'm like, I don't know if I got it, but maybe I did. And then I just said, just remember, this is a little bit of fire that came out that then I let my thoughts kind of go crazy over I just said, just to remind you that I don't know anything unless I hear from you. And I felt like she was a little bit, taken back. I wasn't trying to be too fiery, but I think I was fiery.
You're speaking your truth. You were speaking your truth.
I was just in that, it's hard for me to do what I've been asked to do when I don't know, because I don't know what I don't know. So I did call her back and apologize if I, was just a little bit too abrupt. That wasn't my intention. And I just had said I'd searched through all my emails. I didn't have any, confirmation of the dates. If she could just send that to me, and, then we'd go forward from there. But for some reason, because it is trying to communicate better, and although this lady really did communicate very well, it's just that I didn't get the follow through.
Yeah.
And I decided to bring it out of the dark into the light. I shared it with my husband, how, this is such a dominant pattern, and I don't know how to fix it because it's not necessarily me doing anything. I have to just wait. As I did do that, thought process on paper, which did help, but I kind of laid down to take a little nap, and I do find that I was having some fire. I kind of just was hot, just kind of burning up, because I'm trying to process it and let it go and not let it bog me down, but it is a little bit of a burden.
Yeah. Burden. Look at that word, burden.
Okay.
Right? Sort of like burning, burden. And you were actually physically feeling this with all of the mental activity and this exchange.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that was interesting. And then just one other real quick thing, that seems to be a common pattern that I'm trying to work through. So, but another one last week, I had visited my parents, and when I got home, there was a lot to do. I got home on Wednesday evening. Thursday morning, I had a bunch of things for the day. I had a new client, and I didn't really save a whole lot of time to eat. So I was trying to eat while I was, I was dashboard dining, which I know better than. And I was like, oh, I kind of choked a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I need to just not eat, because obviously you're super stressed right now, more than what I thought. So I did notice all that day that I was quite tight and just kind of almost bound, just with so much stress, that I did some deep breathing, was like, okay, it's all going to be fine. Yes, it's jumping back into real life, but I just need to relax. So that helped, just finally realizing that, I am really on fire today, just with so much going on in stress. And so I had to do some things to try to cool the fire a little bit.
Excellent, Raquel. Excellent check-in. And what I'm sensing from you is great progress. I mean, this is such a huge step for you in so many ways to speak up. Yes, you feel the effects of that. That does generate some heat. And paying attention to your body, right? And so breathing through it, relaxing, taking a nap. And so looking at our patterns. The one thing that I wrote down for you and for all of us is, what is one thing that you can do differently, right? In terms of maybe it's our digestion, maybe it's in terms of our thought pattern. What is the one thing you can do differently and shake things up? Because when we get into those patterns, we're back to the root. And sometimes those patterns are serving and sometimes they're not. And so bringing in a bit of the fire to do a bit of a deconstruction in order to reconstruct. One of the symbols of the fire I get is construction. It's like the yellow sign of construction. And so what are we rebuilding through that? And we can always be remaking ourselves. So thank you. Great lessons.
Thank you.
Let me, so I'd like you to think of a question now. You don't have to voice it, but think of a question for yourself and your fire. I'm going to bring back my screen. Woo! Wait, don't look. There we go. Think of an issue or question as it relates to your fire, and I want you to pick a number 1, 2, or 3. Don't overthink this. Use your fire to move quickly. Think of the issue, pick a number. So for those of you who have chosen 1, here's your food message for this week. Healthy carbohydrates sustain my inner energy. Let's draw the parallel to life. Healthy, sustaining people and situations enable my energy to last longer. Okay, so your message, whoever asked or chose the number 1, it's all about sustaining, keeping yourself burning bright and not burning out, and doing that through people, foods, and events. If you chose number 2, your message is, I eat foods that open me to my powerful self. So this is not about sustaining energy. This is about moments, kind of like Markel was just describing, where your powerful self comes out. We can do that through food. We can do that through life. What generates power and confidence within you? And to be noting that. What drains your power? And power in the best and most beautiful way, right? We're not talking controlling situations. We're talking being powerful and feeling empowered to do, be, and act as your good, true, and beautiful self would want to. And then for anybody that chose number 3, here's your message for the week. I release limiting thoughts, opinions, and judgments about food. And let me tag on here about life. So this is the mental energy card. This is looking at how our thoughts are creating soggy digestion of food and of life. So again, 1 is all about sustenance, keeping your energy consistent through life and through food. The second one is about confidence and power through foods and through life and other situations. And the third one is more mental digestion, letting go, using a bit of the flow to come in and to help you release. All right, everybody. Thank you. This was really beautiful, really powerful check-ins. And, you know, there's something to be said about bringing in the digestive tract and all the things that it can teach us. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time on that today, which we did. And I'm glad, because we learned a lot. It was practical. It was emotional, mental, spiritual. It's the whole gamut. Just shows what the spectrum is contained within our own digestive tract. So have a great week. This is our week of food. And so then next week will be our synthesis week. So enjoy, savor, and be nourished. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.